Excellent. The voice has spoken. It is being recorded. So welcome to Open Studio's second edition of Print Speak. We're really excited to have artist Khadijah Morley here with us today. My name is Anna Gaby-Trotz. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the technical director at Open Studio. And just before we get into the talk, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. Open Studio acknowledges that it is situated on the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee, who are the original owners and custodians of the land on which we continue to create and exist. And this has been a really challenging time for Indigenous people in Canada, so I really urge people to look for ways to lift up Indigenous communities and be allies and really listen to what is needed today. A little bit about Open Studio and Print Speak. Open Studio is an artist-run center dedicated to contemporary print. We offer accessible, inclusive, and affordable printmaking facilities, programs, and services for artists and the public from across Canada and abroad. We support artists in the creation and exhibition of contemporary print in an open-minded, safe, and collaborative environment. Our vision is to shape the exploration of print as essential, dynamic, and relevant to contemporary culture and creative thought. We are located at the 401 Richmond building, and our studio, this is the first week we've been open, so we're really excited to welcome artists back in. So if you are interested in getting more involved in printmaking, reach out to me and we can set up a time to do a tour through the studio. Or if you're looking for classes, we'll talk a little bit about that and our education programs. Print Speak is a new virtual education series that focuses on incredible artists whose work pushed the boundaries of print media. These talks will take you on a journey with each artist to learn about their passion for creating. And today we have artist Khadijah Morley joining us. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I've really admired your work. Khadijah did a great talk for a class I was teaching at OCAD this year. It was really amazing to have her talk to students about her practice and how it's developing. So I'm really excited to be able to bring her back in today to Print Speak to talk about her work and home studio. And I think it'll be a really exciting talk today. So a little bit about Khadijah. Khadijah is a Toronto-based emerging artist who works in various media, including painting and printmaking. Through an autobiographical lens, Khadijah's practice examines issues related to systemic oppression and anti-Black racism. And today, Khadijah will be talking about her practice and also how she uses Chine-collé in relief printing. And we'll also be teaching a class on Chine-collé and relief printing in the studio, in person, hands-on, all things going well in the fall. So that's really exciting as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Khadijah, and then I'm also going to share some slides because Khadijah is going to do sort of a combination of slides that I'll go through and also show us some work in her studio. So welcome, Khadijah. Thanks so much.
Hi, thank you.
Great. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can see Khadijah Morley? Excellent.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll get into it. So hi everyone, I'm Khadijah Morley. I have a couple slides to show you to sort of give context about my practice and like how I got into printmaking, and then after I'll kind of show you my space and the stuff that I'm doing right now. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Anna. So this is just some examples of like my early works. This is a triptych, like ink on paper. Basically, I used to hide myself in my work a lot. I used to avoid using recognizable features in my work. So even though the triptych sort of deals with like identity politics and sort of feeling disconnected from like my Jamaican roots, while making this work, I was like internalizing the notion of the universal, right? So in school, like universal meant basically making work to be relatable to people that didn't necessarily look like me. So that's kind of the vein I was making like a lot of these earlier works in. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the last image of that triptych. And I'm also sort of referencing Western art history in this work. It's sort of like, what you do in school. And I was taught a very Eurocentric history, and you're supposed to sort of find your place within this history and sort of think about how to emulate these traditions or like how you're resisting them. So yeah, I was working in that traditional sense where I'm referencing and responding. And as time went on, I sort of realized that I couldn't do that because there was no place for my narrative in working like that. So, I was pretty much contending with a canon that Black bodies were like stripped of agency. And a lot of the artists in this era that I was like referencing, they would sort of depict Black people as like sort of caricatures and, stereotypes and that sort of thing. So our bodies sort of served as like curiosities for the white gaze. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this was work I was referencing. It's basically my own interpretation. So the earlier works were a bit naive because I was sort of mythologizing a back home in a simplistic way. So it's kind of simplistic to sort of like understand a very complex identity. And I'm sort of trying to use a language that doesn't include me. So obviously Gauguin, is problematic and, would use people of color to sort of pose his own philosophical questions at like the expense of fetishizing other cultures, right? So next slide, please. So when I started to take interest in printmaking and delve a bit deeper into it, I was looking for like my own influences and basically art by people who look like me and were exploring similar topics. So these are like 3 examples of 3 Black women printmakers that prioritize and center like the Black gaze and Black womanhood as their subject matter. And they're basically all their work encompasses, magic, origins and ancestry. Yeah, so that sort of stuff. So next slide, please. So this is my early etching work in that same vein of like trying to find my own voice within printmaking. And what kind of drew me to printmaking was that it was the first time I ever saw myself in my work. Like it felt organic and honest. And so for me, it was like printmaking produced all these like tones and textures that I understood to be skin tone. So I didn't have to compromise my line work at all. It kind of like complemented it. So I kind of started to explore this like aspect of like representation a bit more unapologetically. Next slide, please. So these are 2 examples of 2 different etchings that I did, and they're both sort of talking about issues surrounding mental health. So the first image is more subtle and it's alluding to like lunacy. There's like a moon and sort of it's a more introspective and contemplative state. And the second image is like more so poignant and it's like physical manifestations of like internal dialogue or conflict. And the title basically is a phrase that I heard growing up, where my family members would like characterize my mannerisms as being similar to my mother, and my mother's schizophrenic. So I kind of wanted to do a body of work that explore that kind of thing. And in my community, it's getting better, but there was like a stigma surrounding mental illness and like a distrust of medical facilities for obviously a good reason. And there's a lack of resources to sort of seek help. So yeah, next slide, please. So this is a continuation of sort of personal narratives, and I was like studying soft grounds. So the image is basically just me and my partner chilling. And at the time, I still do, I felt genuinely loved and I kind of wanted to celebrate this joy. So, but as I'm working, I have to think about, how my body is perceived by others. And I have to contend with this like implicit bias. So I kind of rethought about this piece and revisited it. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is a different iteration of that piece. It's more symbolic and has a more complex narrative embedded in it. I was thinking critically about my relationship and what it means to me, what it means to others, and basically what it means like historically. So basically it's like, you know, intimate pose of me and my partner. It's like this voyeuristic view into my bedroom window. And the title Closing Curtains is like in theater, you know, at the end of a performance, it's like closing curtains. So for me, I interpret it as like basically ending the performance of sort of micromanaging how I'm perceived in public with my partner. Next slide, please. So yeah, I just wanted to give some historical context. I put some text up by Patricia Hill Collins to give insight as to why it's important to kind of think about these things. So this is an example of anti-miscegenation propaganda in America, like old kind of stuff. And it's basically mocking interracial relationships. You know, sort of remnants of this viewpoint exists today, and it's sort of evolved into a weirder form that sort of also involves anti-Blackness. So yeah, just to give a bit of context. Next slide, please. So this is a single image from a series of work that I did at OCAD for my thesis. I was doing a lot of lino cuts and I kind of enjoyed the bold graphic quality of lino. It kind of like created this whole new aesthetic that suited what I was discussing in my work. So basically my body of work was exploring themes around the double consciousness. So basically the double consciousness is like constantly seeing yourself through the eyes of others. So you're like hyper aware of your body at all times, and that changes from place to place. The title is a Jamaican phrase. So Duppy know who for frighten. It's basically ghosts know who to scare, which also translates into like bullies know who to prey on. So basically you're like susceptible to their like antics. You're kind of like weak or soft or whatever. Yeah, so it's mysterious. I like it because it kind of like embodies this double consciousness, this duality, because it's either me looking at myself or it's somebody else's eyes looking at me, right? Next slide, please. So these are just other examples to give context about the setting that the work took place in. A lot of the images were done in a domestic setting, and for me, like being at home is like a refuge away from all the microaggressions and all the external things going on. So I feel safe at home. But you know, while I'm at home, I'm sort of there's like this inescapable feeling of internalizing all these thoughts and stereotypes and stuff. So for me, it felt like a haunting of my home, right? Next slide, please. Thank you. So these are my last two slides. You know, just some of the work I've been doing recently. It's, you know, I like to revisit work a lot and like rework the pieces. So yeah, it's just basically me looking in a vanity mirror. Next slide, please. And this is another lino cut that I did. So basically the title, it's called Let Them Yam Cake. Yam is a Jamaican word for eat, and cake is like a North American slang for ass, right? So it's basically like a confrontational and more like pleasurable way of looking at myself. You know, like for the last two pieces I was doing, I was kind of thinking about Black spectatorship and like, you know, just developing a body of work to express as much agency over my identity as I can, because like, you know, I have work that doesn't necessarily deal with the white gaze, right? So that's the end of my slides. Thank you. So what I was gonna do is gonna kind of show you my space. Sorry, this is my brother's phone, so I'm trying to figure out how to use it. There we go. Okay. So this is where I do my work, and I kind of, these things are kind of in the way right now because I'm working on a, sorry, my finger is in the way. I'm working on a reductive lino cut. So that's just kind of things that I'm doing. I have some stuff to show you. So my Chine-collé work. Can everybody see? But like, this is so weird.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. This is like my brother's phone and it just feels massive. Okay. So yeah, I've been playing around with paper because like reductive lino cuts are kind of hard on my body, like because I'm printing a lot, like harder, but I just collect paper for no reason. Like I just love it and I just love the texture. So usually I don't necessarily like think about a piece when I'm using Chine-collé. I just like freely work with it, and it kind of brings a whole new like context, mood, and conceptual, aspect to my work. So this is just something I was playing around with. If I rotate it like this, okay, never mind. So here are just some pulls that I did of this one. So I have like this brown kind of paper with like leaves in it. So just different iterations. And then I kind of reworked an old lino cut I was doing and used more decorative paper. So I kind of had a zine that I did, but I kind of thought it would work better with a different kind of paper. But basically, I like this because it kind of brings a different context to my work, like just by adding paper and color swatches, like especially with the maps, like I was thinking about migration and stuff. So just some more examples of like layering. Just another example. And just more maps on that one. So yeah, I just like the variations of them. Sorry. So initially, like this is like the first one I ever did and it didn't necessarily work out. Like I figured out a better way to stop so much warping, but I was trying to be ambitious with this and this was like massive and I just didn't bother. But I noticed that by playing with paper, I kind of started to reuse this like wood texture. So it's been like showing up in my work a lot, but yeah. Oh, that's the blank image. But yeah, that's basically what I've been doing. Let me just switch my camera back. Sorry, y'all. Oh my God. Thank you. Sorry. So that's, yeah, just a quick overview of the stuff that I've been working on. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, feel free. You can unmute yourself. You can type into the chat and I can read out questions. That was a great talk. I loved how you linked what you're doing now with your past work. I think that's really beautiful. Let's see. Is anyone raising their hand that I can't see? Okay, I have a question for you while people think of questions. How do you see, like you're done at OCAD. This was your last sort of pandemic year. How do you see sort of like moving out of the academic context into other studios? Like, does that excite you to make new work? What are you thinking about when you think of next steps?
Yeah, most definitely. Like, I think too, like moving into like a different space with like different conversations and different people is exciting because it's weird. Like I feel like school is very constricting and it's kind of guiding me to say things in a certain way, in like a legible way, but when I'm out I can just do whatever I want, and I don't have to answer to anybody. And also sort of excited to move into other places and play with different material at sort of like my own pace. So that's kind of what I'm excited about.
Awesome. So we do have a question from Open Studio to everyone. Do you still work from drawings for your print work?
Yeah, like with etching, I kind of mimic my usual like on paper kind of style, but like the line work is a bit more reduced. But when I'm doing lino cuts, it's a very weird way of drawing. Like I simplify my line work a lot, which has been interesting. And it's kind of like helped me to draw better, if that makes any sense. Like I'm more confident about using bigger spaces of like black in my work on paper. Yeah.
So we have a question from Arshi. I hope I get that right. They say, "Hi there. First off, I loved your presentation, and I absolutely adore your work. My name is Arshi. I'm a third-year fine arts major doing an assignment on you. It's like a Wikipedia page type of deal, and I was wondering if you could answer some of my questions. Some of these maybe you can connect after because it might be things that I'm paraphrasing. You may not want to answer them all, but could you tell me in as much detail as possible a bit more about your background, where you were born, when you were younger, your inspirations?" There's a lot of questions. "Which field you work today, different mediums you work in, how your art evolved, and anything you feel comfortable discussing. Or do you know where I can find some better sources on your life? I am truly inspired by you. Thank you." So feel
Uh,
free to, you don't have to answer all of that in this, but if there's one part of that maybe you want to dive into.
okay. Yeah. If I remember, so I grew up in Toronto in like Little Jamaica. My parents immigrated here from Jamaica, so I have a very like Caribbean upbringing. Uh, how what was the other question?
Do you work in different mediums?
Yeah, so I used to draw a lot, just ink and paper and just put accents of color, but basically I use brush like in the on watercolor paper, like almost like calligraphy. Um, so mostly drawing. I don't really paint too much. And yeah, I wonder if I did I answer that okay? I'm trying to think of if I missed anything.
Oh, and they say also they're happy to connect afterwards. So maybe we'll connect the two of you, and then you can have a further conversation. Is that cool?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, because if I was to get into it, like it's a whole telenovela, like too much stuff.
Well, thanks for answering and thanks for the questions. Okay, we have from Heather Martins. Beautiful images. I like how the different colors create different feelings for the same image. What kind of adhesive do you use?
Oh, good question. So I was trying, what is that? I was trying nori paste at first, but it kind of made everything really mushy. Like I use it in etching and it's nicer that way because everything's wet, but because it's dry, I literally just use a glue stick. And like I just make sure my hands are wet and it doesn't stick to my fingers and I kind of place it on the surface and I put wax paper on the back and it works nicely. It's like nice and dry and it's just like sticks. So I just use like cheap dollar store glue sticks.
Okay. Thank you. From Heather Thompson. Heather says, "Great talk. Moving forward, do you see yourself returning to intaglio? Also,
Yeah.
I want to say I love your line etch piece with gold leaf, question mark." I think she wants to know if it is gold leaf as well.
Oh, is it the in there? I don't have any gold leaf in the line etchings. In my drawings, I have like gold acrylic. But yeah, I'd love to do intaglio some more. Like I love aqua tints. I love playing with the textures. I love soft browns. I just like collecting things. So I want to be able to do more work that like with that. And yeah, I love etching.
Pooty says, "Thank you for the talk and inviting us into your space, Khadijah. You reference some critical texts in your slides. What other sources do you draw from for your conceptual foundation? Any interest in horror/science fiction, which I feel for me, your aesthetic kind of alludes to, however unintentionally?"
Yeah, good question. I read a lot of sort of Black women writers, just basically about, Black identity and Black sexual politics, all these sort of things to sort of make sure I'm very careful about representing things. So I read a lot about like that, like, Audre Lorde and bell hooks. But the horror theme, that's interesting. I really I wanted to watch Poltergeist actually when I was doing my thesis thing, but I didn't bother. I hate horror movies. They like scare me too much. Um, but I think it's because I'm superstitious. Like my family is super superstitious, so this kind of creepiness and like surreal kind of element in my work, I think it just comes from being afraid of the dark and spirits and all that. And yeah, even now I don't sleep in the dark. Like I have a nightlight, so yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions here? Anyone with their hand up? No? Okay. Well, I think that's it for our questions, but thank you so much for being here. And like I said, Khadijah, you'll be teaching a Chine-collé class in the fall. So I'm excited for that. I want to take that and get into the studio and play. I think that will be really fun. Oh, there is one more question. Have you found other papers?
Oh, like printing papers or decorative papers? I keep finding a lot of decorative papers. But like I tend to work with just like standard paper, like the BFK Reeves or Strathmore. But the decorative ones, I'm just in the stores looking and I just grab them.
Okay. And then she wants to know also what types work well, but I think you kind of answered that. Oh, and have you worked with Japanese paper?
Yeah. They're like very thin. Some of them are kind of thicker, but like I like the thinner ones. Like thicker paper kind of causes like this tension. So I really like the thinner ones to, what do you call it? You get more flexibility with it.
Cool.
But I just pick with my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like a sort of collage based practice that you're doing in some ways. Yeah,
Mm.
really beautiful. Nick Schick says, great presentation. So excellent to see how your work has developed over the years, which is really nice.
Thank you. Hi.
Nick was the technician in print at OCAD for years. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna, our phone is ringing. 1 second. Yeah, so if you want to know more about Khadijah or Open Studio, we're going to put a link. Khadijah had a piece in CBC, which her this year, which has some great video footage. So check that out. We'll put that in the chat. We're also going to put Open Studio's link in the chat, so check us out there. And a reminder that we have one more Print Speak session happening. It's going to be screen time and exploration of personal, professional, and politically engaged screen printing with Jessie Purcell, who's a member of the Just Seeds Collective. So that's going to happen Thursday, July 22nd from 1 to 1:45. So please join us for that. And I would just like to thank Khadijah again for an amazing talk and presentation. It's great to see your work. I'm really excited, hopefully as the studio opens more, to be able to work in the space with you. And I'd like to thank Open Studio's Education Committee for the support in organizing this new virtual education series. And thanks to the Open Studio team working behind the scenes on this to make these events possible. And thanks to everyone for joining us here today. It's great to see people virtually, and hopefully we'll meet again in a studio or a gallery space one day soon. Yeah, you can also donate to the event. All of the proceeds go back to do more events like this. So we'll put the link in there as well. And yeah, feel free to contact office@openstudio.ca or me, Anna, at openstudio.ca if you have any questions. So yeah, thanks so much, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day. Bye.